Your Game Boy is haunted by exclusive games. Ooh, spooky. Here's 5 reasons. Hi there, I'm retrogaming Puppet. This is 5 reasons, and let's not beat around the bush. Y'all know what time of year it is. We're talking about 5 spooky games that have never left the Game Boy platform. We spent the whole summer talking about the Game Boy, so if you need a history lesson, I suggest checking those episodes out. But I'll give you the nutshell version here. It launched in 1989 in much of the gaming world, and saw pretty consistent game releases for 10 years, at which point the Game Boy Color took over. But many of that system's titles were still compatible with the black and white model. It's one of the best-selling game platforms of all time, and it has a library of over 1,000 games, not including the color games that work on the original. And speaking of that, this list is confined to black and white format Game Boy games. The color is a story for another day. So let's get to it. Here's 5 scare the pants off your reasons to own a Game Boy. We're going to start with arguably the least interesting game on this list. Dr. Franken 2, the sequel to the Super NES and Game Boy game, The Adventures of Dr. Franken, sees the player take on the role of the good doctor's creation as he... I'm not really sure what the ultimate goal is here. Cleaning out the castle, I guess? It's kinda an action-adventure hybrid with key items that allow you to progress around the house and adjacent areas. It feels very ambitious, and I think there might be something to it, but from what I experienced, I'm going to say only die-hard Frankenstein or Game Boy fans need apply. It's not a bad game, but it is a little obtuse. Not the last of those we'll be talking about today. But still, if you want to take it for a spin, and for a certain type of person it is worth taking for a spin, expect to pay between $15 and $30. Speaking of cleaning out castles, here's something I think most of you expected to be on this list. Castlevania Legends is a now retconned game featuring Sonia Belmont, who was, for a minute, the great matriarch of the Belmont clan, until Koji Igarashi decided it wasn't cool if a lady was the first vampire-hunting Belmont, and... On the other hand, this game also implies that Alucard is the patriarch of the Belmont clan, and that's an implication I can probably do without. Anyways, Legends falls pretty squarely in the middle of the properly named Castlevania games on the Game Boy. Much better than Adventure, but much worse than Belmont's Revenge. While it isn't terrible, it was made by a team at Konami Nagoya who did the Saturn port of Symphony of the Night and... The Grinch for PS1. So yeah, not a major pedigree here. It's pretty slow, it removes traditional sub-weapons in favor of spirit weapons earned after each boss fight, which sometimes fill the same role, but because you don't have to choose one at a time, the balance is effective. And not for the better, in my opinion. It also means that on stage 1, you have no sub-weapons, and then on stage 2, you only have the stopwatch, and so on. Still, it plays fine, and while it has frustrating elements, many of which I don't have time to go into now, you could do a lot worse. I mean, you could do a lot better, too, and sitting at over $100 for a bare cart, you probably should, but for the Castlevania crazed, I suppose you have to at least check it out. Speaking of spirit weapons, let's talk about Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. This game was designed by Rare like the NES game, but unlike the NES game, it's based on the cartoon, a personal favorite of ours as kids. The Dietz house is haunted by more than Beetlejuice, and the ghost with the most has to get those apparitions that aren't him out of here. What makes this one a good time is that each room of the house plays a bit differently. In one room, you're using ghost magic to fight spirits possessing laundry. Then in another, you're having a scary face competition by playing a kinda DDR rhythm game. And in yet another, you're playing something kinda like Pipe Dream. If you've only ever played the NES game, you really just gotta give this one a try. It's much better, and it includes a fantastic David Wise soundtrack. And, well, unfortunately, while it's not as expensive as Castlevania Legends, the license has driven up the cost a little bit, and you should expect to pay about $50 for a bare cart in the current market. Speaking of licensed games that are very solid, and different from their home counterparts, Alien 3 on the Game Boy is a decidedly different take on the film than its console iterations. A top-down, proto-survival horror game with inventory management and limited ammo, Ripley attempts to clear the xenomorphs from Fury 161, while acquiring keys, maps, and more to attempt to find her way off the planet. Okay, so it's not exactly movie accurate, but avoid a single alien until you die anyways doesn't sound like a great concept for a game, honestly. Also, spoilers for a 30-year-old movie. Like Dr. Franken 2, it can be a bit obtuse at times, but it's much less frustrating than that game. At least, that's what I thought. And I'll give you one hot tip to start. To pick up items, hit the select button to bring up the menu, and then choose the item that's lying in front of you. That's going to save you some initial frustration. If you want a real good rundown of this one, friend of the show, Matt the Game Boyle, did an episode of Boyographic on it, and yeah, you should give that a watch. It's what convinced us to check it out. And hey, this one is a little more affordable at only $20 to $30 for a bare cart. Speaking of clearing an area of monsters, Konami's Castlevania spin-off made it to the Game Boy as well. In fact, this is the only version that came to the US until a few months ago when a Famicom game finally got an official localization. And that might make you think it isn't fair game for this show. But the Game Boy Kid Dracula is not a port, it's a sequel. Garamoth, sometimes known as Galamoth, who many of you probably know better from Symphony of the Night, is trying to make the armies of the night his own. And Kid Dracula ain't having that, you know? The Kid Dracula games play more like Mega Man than Castlevania, but that's fine with me. These games are a lot breezier than your standard game in the series and feature chibi art with a ton of personality. If nothing else, this game is worth playing just for these cutscenes. Look at a cute little Grim Reaper, eh? Kid Dracula is a fantastic little action platformer, and if you've played the Famicom version, you gotta check this one out too. Unfortunately, the scariest thing about this game is the price. A legitimate North American cartridge copy of this game goes for north of $100. Forget about a complete copy. Yeah, so I'd recommend a flash cart or some other means of checking this one out. And that does it for me, but I will be back before the month is out with a spooky episode of Obscure Old Games. I'll see you then. Hey everyone, this is Joe. Thank you so very much for watching. If you dug what you saw, do all the stuff, the liking, the commenting, the subscribing. I hate asking that, but the algorithm must be pleased, and as weird as it sounds, it really does help the channel. I know everybody says that. If you really liked the shows, consider kicking in $1 on Patreon. Just $1 per video gets you early access, your name among these fine people here, and more. And if you want more spooky stuff, the Halloween video playlist is on the left, and if you want more Game Boy stuff, the Game Boys of Summer playlist is on the right.